So 7 years ago, what was the founder's journey? What did you guys do 7 years ago? We were like, all right, we're gonna start this business.
I got two young children. I had quite a demanding job. I was never home, and my wife wanted to move to America.
When it comes to entrepreneurship and the American dream and starting your own business, going to home services is a very great route.
And like I said, Lisa had actually been here. So going back 15, 20 years, she had actually been here on her own with a similar visa, but she had bought a franchise. Cleaning industry wasn't something I thought I'd ever be in. I'm a former optometrist back in Scotland, but I love business.
Welcome to another edition of our Superpro podcast, where we shine a spotlight on top professionals in the home service industry, learning about their journey, challenges, and success stories. I'm your host, Roland. I'm the co-founder of Housecall Pro, and I've had the pleasure of helping hundreds of thousands of pros just like you achieve all kinds of success using our software. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Chris, who runs the business Highland Cleaning Company with his wife, Lisa. And they're originally from Scotland. We're going to hear all about this story, but they've built an impressive business over the last 7 years. They have over 15 employees. Their goal is the $1 million mark for 2024. And he's currently taking steps to expand through franchising. So we'll ask some questions about that too. He successfully integrated Housecall Pro in his operations, helped streamline his business. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Roland. I'm excited to be here.
Nice. So 7 years ago, what was the founder's journey? What did you guys do 7 years ago? We were like, all right, we're gonna start this business.
Well, it's in a nutshell, because I did explain to Roland earlier that I can talk a lot. Being Scottish, we talk a lot. So basically, I got two young children. I had quite a demanding job. I was never home, and my wife wanted to move to America. So we made a plan. She had owned a cleaning company in the past, and as a business entrepreneur, I was like, look, this is an easy route for us. We can get to the USA, open a cleaning business, and I can spend more time with family, because my kids were young and I was missing out on so much of their lives. So that's what prompted us to do it.
So that's the reason. I think that's a great noble reason. And I think, when you go and start your own business, oftentimes you'll find yourself working more hours than whatever you're doing before, but you get to command when and where you do certain things. So that gives you the flexibility, especially if you've got family at home.
And that's right. And that's what we focused on. For me, I knew that I could work shorter days, but work harder for shorter amount of time. So my kids finish school at 2, 3 o'clock. I could be home, do the homework, make dinner, and interact with the family. And we've managed to achieve it. It took a couple of years, but now we're 7 years in now, and everything's going pretty well. So
yeah, you guys have built a great business. So you guys were able to get the right visas and things like that to be able to come to the US and pitch building a company here. And that all worked out fairly easily, it sounds like.
We make it sound easy, but it was very complicated. So it's actually called the E2 investors visa. A lot of people from foreign countries, that's a route to come into the country and present a business plan to the embassy, and you hope that they'll grant it. And every five years, you have to renew it. You have to give them your business, and they'll decide if you want to renew that business. So
wow, yeah,
and,
I think when it comes to entrepreneurship and the American dream and starting your own business, going to home services is a very great route. I don't think any business is rocket science or novel in the way that you're building some technique, but I think they're very hard, and you're meaningful in employing lots of people. You guys have built a great business over the last 7 years already, and that's very impressive.
Yeah. And like I said, Lisa had actually been here. So going back 15, 20 years, she had actually been here on her own with a similar visa, but she had bought a franchise. And then when we got together, got married, she sold that franchise, and we moved back to Scotland, had our children. And then it was like, I'd like to go back. And, I was like, okay, cleaning industry wasn't something I thought I'd ever be in. I'm a former optometrist back in Scotland. But I love business. And that's I was like, I ended up doing more. And I was like, Lisa, this is a good, solid business. You could do very well at this, but, it's got its challenges, but.
What are some things that you take from like your optometry background that you can go like, oh yeah, because I've learned that, or there's some things here that like really directly apply? Like, what are some interesting insights you've like taken from that and now applied to, the Highland Cleaning Company?
I mean, mostly I would say from the staffing point of view. I mean, I'm
Mm,
pretty sure every business owner I've ever talked to, it's always about the staff. If you've got good staff around you, can you train them? Can you, you know, keep them motivated to do the things that you don't want to do? And that's same with optometry. It was, you had to have a good receptionist, you had to have good salespeople, you had to have good technicians, and you had to have good vendors. And it's really just about building those relationships. And that's what I think. I wouldn't say exclusive to my background, but I'd say it's pretty much common across all businesses. You've got to have a good framework of an understanding of people. And I think during my time testing eyes, I was very, very good at being empathetic and sympathetic with people. And
mm,
sales were easy for me. I could sell you anything. And suddenly you're like, okay, well, I got to teach someone else how to do that part. So,
Sure, sure.
yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can almost say you had like an eye for picking out great people.
Oh,
But
that's good.
yeah, that's a good one. But how do you like, there's probably a good amount of turnover, on the cleaning side of the business, but you're
Yeah.
able to keep that number roughly the same. And as you grow, you're able to find good people. What do you look for? Oh my gosh, there's so many bad puns here. But like, what are like, what are the frameworks and things that you're like, okay, this person's got it. They should be joining our team.
So we actually Lisa, my wife, she developed these four things. So she looks for accountability, she looks for honesty. She's going to kill me because I can't remember the other two now. But the main ones that she focuses on, and that's all she asks for. Can you be honest and can you be accountable for
Mm.
all that you do? Um, and slowly you realize that you can impart that sort of ethic onto people when they realize, I don't have to be a rocket scientist here. I just need to be honest with Chris and Lisa. I just need to be accountable. If in our cleaning industry, things get broken,
Oh
and
yeah.
the stories I hear from new clients are, oh, I found a broken dish in the back of a cupboard that the girls, obviously, girls or guys, cleaned and
Mhm.
broke it. So we say, look, if you break it, just tell me.
Mhm.
I mean, I will either pay to have it fixed, but 70-80% of the time, the homeowner's like, oh, don't worry about it. We've got a spare one. We don't really mind, as long as they know. And when they realize that we've always got their backs on that, and I always do, whether, you know, if something's broken, it's an accident. So
Yeah.
that's the little things that you try and impart on on our staff, that, being honest is the first one. If you can't come to work today because you're not feeling well, don't tell me it's because you have a flat tire.
Mm. Yeah.
Because that's what we used to hear a lot. I don't
Yeah.
hear that anymore, because I tell them, if you can't come to work because you don't have money to put gas in your car, tell me. I'll give you some gas money. I
Yeah.
don't want you missing work, because you just be honest with me. So really, that's what I look for all my girls and the guys that work for us, is just be honest. If you've got an issue and you want to come to me, then just come and tell me, and I'll be sympathetic and empathetic, and I'll do my best to help you,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that building that relationship with my staff has been the key. Um, I always believe that if I have a good person with a good attitude, we can train them how to clean. They don't have to come here knowing how to be superstar cleaners. We'll turn them into a superstar cleaner. They just got to have a good attitude.
Yeah.
That's
Good.
what I look for.
I love that golden nugget, which is like, letting them know just to be open and honest. When you run a cleaning business, you're inside people's homes. Like, this is their
That's
home.
it.
You need someone that has high integrity because, it's probably the most vulnerable that you could be and on an ongoing basis. And
Yep.
so I think that definitely is probably one
Yeah.
of the small reasons why you guys are doing so well, because you have to have that as a cleaning business and you have to build that trust. And it starts with your employees. And it sounds like you've got a good process for that. When you say you can turn people into superstar cleaners, what do you do when it comes to training? How do you turn them into superstar cleaners?
I mean, there's two facets really. One is Lisa is an incredible trainer for cleaning.
Uh huh.
She's done it for so long. Since a young age, she'd cleaned hotels, owned a previous business, and now obviously this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the products we use. So we make sure the girls use our products. So we primarily use Ecolab, which is water based. They've all been tested on everything, but it's the process for training is getting them to understand what the client actually needs. So, because a lot of our clients have different needs. Some
Yeah,
of
they
them
would be
want,
like, "Oh my God, my stove is always messy." And if you do that
yeah,
one, then like, okay, we nail that
yeah.
client.
But most of it, I mean, to sit down and tell you we have a defined training system wouldn't be true. What is true is when they come in, they're usually, I'm thinking 4 or 5 of my girls have been with us for 4 to 5 years.
Oh wow.
And they're the core of my business, really. And they're the ones that stay with us, but they're the ones who understand what Lisa's expectations are. Then they understand what the clients are. And we make sure that, I mean, we don't clean 5 houses a day. Our girls don't. They clean one in the morning and one in the afternoon. They're usually high profile clients or large homes. We don't really clean too many condos. When I've built the business, I built it around a higher ticket value of rather than cleaning lots of small apartments or whatever.
Right.
So that means that they've got the time to take the time to clean it properly and not worry about the clock and think, oh my goodness, we got to be out of here in 2 hours. They don't. They've got usually 3 hours, 4 hours each.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly over time, Lisa's training develops. I mean, she has an online training course. We do practical training, but most of it just comes from imparting the knowledge from our core staff onto the newer people. And then there is an actual system, and I think you could Google it and you'd find out it's all about left to right, top to bottom, and there's just so many different ways to describe the same process. But it's mostly about being accountable, being honest, turning up for work, and when things go wrong, don't worry about it. Tell Chris. He'll sort it out, and we'll talk about why it didn't go so well. And then slowly they understand that, I can take a little longer to clean this bathroom and do it properly, rather than rush through it. So we've built that business around that kind of work ethic.
Yeah, and I think too, if you've got employees that have been there for a while that understand the expectations, both on the customer side, but also for the ownership or management side, that using them as like training examples for the others, and doing ride-alongs or pair-ups, for people that don't know, you're kind of doing that knowledge transfer. And so even if you're doing think of it as like, oh, now you got 2 people, but you're still charging the same. Oh no, it's not profitable. But the amount of knowledge that second person is gaining, think of that as like training investment. And a lot of folks are sometimes afraid of doing that because they're like, oh no, like they can't pay for that. Now I'm negative on my jobs. But the reality is like you would have paid for that training in some other way, whether it's a broken item or a lost high profile client, which is even more costly to replace than just the time hours, it takes to train.
Yeah. And that's key as well. Quite often, a 2-person job will add in the extra person. The client likes having 3 people as long as they understand that they're not being charged for that. It's part of our training process. The other side from that is also, I like to have a 3rd person trained in that home so that people call off sick or that person takes some time off. Then I've always got that extra person who knows that home because they've been trained in that home. So, it's part of the scheduling process as well, which actually is why I love Housecall Pro, because it's easy to see who cleaned it last time. It's it's very intuitive to find out. You just go through an invoice and it goes, oh look, that's who cleaned it, and I can put that person back there whenever I need to. So
being organized definitely allows you to do that. And when it comes to cleaning homes, I could imagine for my own home, I want to establish a relationship with the cleaner. I don't want a new person every single time.
No.
Even if they had the notes from the previous one, I'd still feel like I'd want someone to become accustomed to the way that we like things done or like the nuances of the house, because each house is different.
That's it. And that's what most of our clients do want. They want the same person or a friendly face. They don't want to see. And whenever we get a new client, they're the same things that I hear why they fired their previous services. It was different people. They broke stuff. They hid stuff. They didn't show up, or whatever. And it tends to be the same things. And then, like I say, if we just focus on those aspects, it's very easy to build a business.
That's right.
That.
And how are you? I think especially for jobs that are more labor related. So there's not like a lot of materials involved, like HVAC reinstall and stuff. And there's all
Yeah.
kinds of costs of materials. But like for more labor based businesses, like cleaning, like windows, like power washing, like lawn
Yeah.
care. How are you managing the expectations of like your employees knowing what they get paid versus what you're charging the clients? Is that something where that's an open book in a conversation you're having with them, or is that something that they aren't aware of?
Funnily enough, we started off that they're not aware. So we would pay our girls an hourly rate and just say, clock in at 8 o'clock, clock out at 5 o'clock. You're paid for the whole day. Try not to worry about what we're physically making. I've tried to get them to. I saw over the years the staff who've been here longer, because that question does come up. A lot of people
Yeah.
think, "Oh, you're making $300. I only got paid 50." So
Mhm.
what I did was I'd sit down with them and explain to them, "Here's how much this office costs. Here's how much Housecall Pro costs. Here's how much." All
Mhm.
the different other softwares we use. And then we have our insurances and then all our chemicals. And then I was like, trying to explain to them. And then some of that profit has to go towards finding more clients so that you can stay in a job. And by trying to get them to understand how a business operates,
Mhm. Mhm.
it stopped them asking. And actually, literally this morning, one of the girls came in and said, "I don't think you're probably charging this lady enough." And I was like, so actually she's
Yeah.
away today and she's going to come back tonight and tell me this is actually what I think. Now, she doesn't know what we're being paid. She just said, whatever you're being paid,
It's
it's
not
probably
enough.
not enough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's because she understands that there's an opportunity for the business to make some more money. So, and they get their, we do a bonus twice a year as well. We do
Mm-hmm.
we do one in July and then one at Christmas time. Um, and they understand that some of that profit that they're generating gets put into that pot, so that
Oh, okay.
they get a bigger bonus come December, and then then they get another one back in July again.
That's great.
So yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that's another kind of golden nugget tip, which is, if you can spend the time with your employees to educate them about all the other costs of running a business, they're not going to
yeah,
see the disparity between like, oh my gosh, the homeowners at this, I'm getting paid at that. Like, what is that all profit? It's like, no, like
yeah,
look at all these other costs that add up. Like, yeah, there's some profit of running the business, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But the reality is like it's not quite as it
yeah,
seems. And I think the second piece of that is, which is a lot of people don't know how much money gets into or goes into customer acquisition, maintaining those client
hmm,
relationships, keeping those books filled. Because it's really easy to be a W 2 or a full time
yeah,
1099. I don't know how to say that, but it's easy to be that and just like, oh yeah, there's just jobs I need to go to. But keeping that calendar book, I mean, there's
absolutely.
costs involved in that. And if you're not as a part of another business, then you have to find those jobs yourself. So you're
Yeah.
working half the time to do the job, half the time to find a job.
Yeah, and I think this year not so much, but last year we took a real dive in business between July and August, and we
Mhm.
lost a client who was paying us quite well, and they moved. Actually, they sold the business and moved away. But so during July and August of last year, we were losing money on our revenue. But because of the profits that we do have, I just kept paying them their full time wages, and I would say, "Hey guys, you're off tomorrow, but I'm still going to pay you."
Mhm.
Just so as you
Mhm.
know, tomorrow I've only got one job to clean in the morning, but
Mhm.
that's okay. I'll pay you to 5 o'clock. And the girls who were at that time, they were like, "Oh, this is great, Chris." And I was like, "Yeah, but remember, this is because during January to February, March, and April, when we made lots of money, that money's now paying your wages today."
Mhm.
So I appreciate the hard work you did earlier, but now it's quiet. It's no, and we're not quick. We don't pick up jobs quick. I'm not pick up the phone. I have to see the client. I have to see the house, and then I'll bid it properly. We don't just take a call today and say, "Hey, can you clean my kitchen this afternoon?" I'm like, no, that's not how we run our business. And the
Mhm.
girl, but on the flip side of that, you got to make sure that you make good profit in the good months, but be prepared to reward the girls in the quieter times. I say
Yeah,
so.
when it's harder, and I think that goes back to them knowing that, hey, yeah, the business did really well here, but those funds are being taken for these jobs that we're not even being paid, and I'm still getting paid. And if
Yeah,
they start correlating the two, that's how I mean, cleaning business, that's tough to have the kind of employee retention that you have is really great. That's, I would
Yeah,
say, uncommon. And clearly you're scaling the $1 million cleaning business. So it's part of the secrets of your success.
it is. But let's not pretend. It's brutal. The
Yeah.
turnover is. I wish I could find. I could wish I could have less turnover,
Yeah.
but um, like you say, I speak to lots of other business owners, and the turnover is tough. Mainly
Mhm.
because some people aren't career cleaners. I mean, I would say three or four of the girls we have are career cleaners. That's all they ever want to do. So they're happy to work with us because that's what they want to do. They see that we're doing our best to try and make the business. I mean,
Mhm.
I would say, we'll always be a small size business, but we're trying to make it so basically so I can play golf more. If I can play golf more, then everybody's winning. So that's how I see it. So
What feature of Housecall Pro enables you to play the most amount of golf?
wow.
We're just going to tie the two
Well,
together.
yeah. I mean, I think I mean, the easiest part is the fact that on the mobile app, you could run the business from the mobile app.
Yep.
Every summer we go back to Scotland for almost a month, 5 weeks. Maybe this year we were away for 5 weeks, and I could actually run my business on a phone.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think that's huge from that point of view. Being able to communicate with my customers directly through the app
Mhm.
is huge. We take a lot of bookings, and a lot of the communication is actually done directly through the Housecall Pro app. So those things, and then from running the business, just being able to print out, although I have to use my desktop for that, the reporting side of stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
They're the things that I love the most. Everything, I actually love Housecall Pro. I've looked at lots of others and used others in the past. Obviously, back in optometry, they have lots of these CRM systems,
Oh
but
yeah.
Housecall Pro just works for me, and it did from day one. And I just, I actually now it's better than it ever was when we first started 7 years ago. So but
Yeah,
it's
it's added a couple features. Well, I mean, one
yeah,
of the things we were talking about earlier is just like the reporting side.
yeah,
Obviously, things that are more advanced, you need to log into the web, right? So you have a
yeah,
much bigger screen on a device. You're working within the constraints of a device. You can actually load the mobile
correct.
browser, but it doesn't look the best. And
No,
so using the web is way better. What about the reporting? What are the things that you're looking at? What are kind of like KPIs or piece
yep.
of information you're looking for when you're running reports?
I mean, for me, the KPIs for cleaning industry is really it's really that comes down to the field supervisors. That's what they're looking at. For
Mhm.
me, it's all about the numbers, the revenue. I like my business is quite a cycler. I can't say that word.
Particular, yeah.
Secular.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we have busy periods and we have quiet periods, and the new reporting system actually shows you it really nicely in a line graph, and it can. And obviously I've got 7 years worth of data to look at, but I
Mm.
can see exactly my peak periods, when I'm slow, when I need to ramp up some extra staffing, that's what I love about it. I like that I can compare this week to last year, which
Mm. Mhm.
I'd never really had that before. So, when the office manager says, "Hey, Chris, how are our sales at the moment? It seems quiet." I'm like, actually, we're rocking. We're only quiet because we've got, such efficient staff now who's knocking out cleans too quickly, and we're having to ask them to slow down. I was like, you don't need to. With this job, we're being paid for 10 hours. You don't have to try and clean it in four,
Yeah.
just.
Take your time.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what I like. I like being able to see my numbers, and mostly it's revenue. I'm really looking at.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like for a lot of home service businesses, there is a huge seasonal component to it, and sometimes it's really hard to kind of look at what's actual, like what am I feeling versus how am I compared to last week, last month, last season,
yeah,
last year, this time, because you can really gauge that versus like are we high season, shoulder season, or low season, and then
yeah,
you can really
exactly.
kind of get a feel of how the business ebbs and flows throughout the year and calibrate how you're performing, even if you feel like you're doing less. Well, yeah, of course you're
Yeah,
doing less because you're in shoulder or low season. But
yeah,
comparatively to last shoulder or low season, you're growing, and so you'll be
yeah.
able to see those metrics. And I don't
And that
think
was
enough business owners do that.
Yeah, and one of the key things that I've actually just looked at a couple of days ago was on the Housecall Pro. When I use a contractor, when we're too busy for my own teams, we'll use a contractor, and that
Mm-hmm.
contractor is just put in as an employee, but
Mm-hmm.
just so I can just for the well, I didn't realize how much business I was giving the contractor. So then I ran the numbers, and then I found out actually, if I just didn't even do that business, I'd probably net profits were the same.
Mm-hmm.
So this year although we're gonna be, our revenue is slightly down this year. I haven't paid a contractor to do half the work for me. So I mean, we were growing so fast that I was having to use the contract, but the contractors aren't as good as my employees.
That's right.
They're good, but they don't have the same standards.
Right.
But I didn't realize I could run that as a report. And I did it a couple of days ago, and I was like, it's easy, because I think this one was employees. It showed you how much revenue each employee generated for the business. And then right at the bottom, there was the contractor. And I was like, I wonder what they did last year. And I was like, they did too much. They did too much last year. So
Yeah. And inside of these reports, just so you kind of visualize, because we're talking on a podcast and it's hard to kind of see it, but like in
sure.
these tech leaderboards, for lack of a better word, you can see their job count, you can see their average job size, you can see their average rating inside of Housecall Pro. To ask the customer, the homeowner, for rating, so you can see which of your technicians or which of your employees are getting the best ratings. Same with how much time are they spending on the job. So you can take like revenue divided by job spent. Like, are they efficient? And kind of like what you're mentioning too is if you're using a contractor, that's great. If you have a lot of demand and you need to quickly bump up your supply, your labor supply, but you're going to be paying a lot more money, for this kind of mercenary. Has a negative connotation to it, but mercenary kind of behavior. It's like they're in it for the bucks, and then they kind of go.
And to be fair, the contractor, if she ever watches this, we love her, and she cleans my house. I don't have my own teams clean my house. That's too awkward for me. But we love her, and she cleaned the house last week for me because me and Lisa, I wanted to play golf, and I was like, I'm gonna have to work that day, and I was like, do you know what? Let's have the contractor do that, so I don't have to, and she'll always step in to help. So
that's awesome.
And we have a great relationship with her. But I had to explain to her, I was like, that I have to I can't just keep finding more business for you to do. That was kind of key to the conversation with her. So,
well, I mean, everything is sort of that seesaw. It's like if you want more consistent jobs, then you become an employee and then you work at a different rate, but you have consistency. If you want to have high-paying jobs, you may be more lucrative, but it's going to be more inconsistent. And those two things, if you multiply them together, it's probably going to equal to be the same thing. High consistency, normal pay versus inconsistency, higher pay. If you multiply those things, probably the same.
Yeah. And I think that's a difficult one for business owners as well. Like I said, my revenue is down this year, but when we've just about to finish our third quarter, when you see the profit, it won't be that much different from last year, although the revenue's down. And that actually was the key to this year. So if I don't quite hit the million last year, we just missed it last year. We just missed it the year before. This year, if I don't make it, I'll be more focused on my actual net profits. So
that's right. Yeah. And that's what keeps businesses like really ultimately alive and worth doing.
Yeah.
Because revenue without net profit is, well, you better be growing really freaking fast if you're trading that. And spending that delta, on marketing and acquisition. What's a feature that you're like, oh man, I wish I was using this feature when I first started with Housecall Pro. Like, why did I not do this earlier? I'm kicking myself. I'm not playing enough golf because of it.
I mean, there's quite a lot. I think when I first started, I was just focused in on the scheduling side and stuff like that. We don't, and even to this, I mean, Lisa does more of it than I do. Using the integrated apps, like I think MailChimp. I'm going to say ones that you have to correct me because it's Lisa that does those. But those kind of integrated apps, we don't really, or I didn't utilize very many of them in the past. Whereas Lisa started to use the marketing ones, the postcards, just little aspects like that they're sitting there waiting to be used. But I do the operations so often that I don't see those parts. And when you do pick them, you're like, wow, there's loads of stuff here. And that would be good. And I'll just send that to Lisa and say, hey, Lisa, do you use it? She's like, Yeah, and she's usually said, "Yeah, I've been using that for a few months now, Chris." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I only just discovered it today, so what can I do?"
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah,
another great tip for others. There's so many different things that Housecall Pro has to offer. Most recently the campaigns function on the marketing side, the ability to send
yeah,
emails to past customers, texts to customers, postcards to customers,
yeah,
all of those types of things, especially in years when, we're in an election year. I would say the economy is less booming this year as it
hmm
was previous years. So really focusing on your own base of customers for reviews, referrals, follow-up jobs because maybe you haven't serviced them
yeah.
in a while. Those are great kind of tips, and make sure to use the tools at your advantage. There's a lot, but
And that's it. Because
take a look at them.
and technically it's free. I see them as free. If I got a call, and it does happen weekly. I'll get a call from somebody, and I'm like, "Oh, I haven't heard from them in months." And then I'll speak to Lisa later on. We have like a weekly meeting, and I was like, "Oh, we picked up that client again." She's like, "Oh yeah, I sent him a few messages a lot," and I was like, "Oh well, it works because he called again." So,
Mm-hmm.
and like I say, because he's a previous client. Sometimes they just do it directly through the Housecall Pro communications app, just straight through the inbox. And you're like, it really takes nothing. And they love it because it's convenient. Actually, this gentleman lives in New York and he was coming back into town. He was like, oh, yeah, better have my house clean before I come back for the winter. So,
Mm-hmm.
we, and those little parts, they're the little parts that you don't have to spend, I don't spend too much time thinking about because
Sure.
it's automated, but obviously Lisa's doing it in the background. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and with anything, good data in allows you to have good data out. So if you're tagging customers
Yeah.
correctly, like repeat customers, or you can tag them as infrequent vacation rentals, or like
Yeah.
whatever, then you can really segment and go like, all right, these are all my winter birds or snowbirds
Yeah.
or wherever they might be, and it's just like, okay, every November they're probably going to be coming in for the
Yeah.
festivities in the Big Apple, and like boom, poof,
Yeah.
go like hit them all up
Yeah.
because they're probably
And
traveling.
actually, when you just said that about the tagging, that's probably what we never use that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. I mean, I actually think we probably should go back through and start tagging
Mm-hmm.
previous ones that aren't, because we have thousands of clients that we probably could be targeting again. So
Yeah.
that's a good one. Thanks, Roland.
There you
That's
go.
us back on.
Hey,
I'll stick that on Lisa's to do.
oh, we made this podcast worth it. We're already well over time. I knew this would go fast based upon our initial conversation. What's like a parting gift of wisdom or something where you're like, man, if only I could tell baby Chris before he was good at golf 10 years ago, do this or that. Like, what's some parting wisdom you can kind of give our audience here that we can leave them with?
Well, and this is actually something I impart to all the girls, all the people that come and work for us. I always say to them, the worst case scenario of anything is cancel and start again tomorrow. There's nothing can go that wrong for you. When I go away to Scotland for 5, 6 weeks in the summer, I leave 2, 3 managers here, and I just say to them, if you're having the worst day ever and nothing's going right and some staff aren't showing up, then just look at call the client and say, hey, we're short of some girls today. Can I rebook you? And I
Mm,
think people are too scared to, rather than doing what we would call in Scotland a half-assed job, rather than just sending one girl when you should have had 3, call the client and tell them.
mhm,
And I think when I was in the beginning, I would struggle with that. I'd be like, oh my God, I'll lose the client if I don't clean it today because I told them I'd be there at 12.
mhm.
I think most people are a bit more understanding of a small business if you were to say, hey, my main girl, she called off today. John's not going to be able to make your cleaning today. Can we reschedule for next week? And they always do. And I think if I had known that earlier on, not to panic so much, not to force the issue, and
Sure.
rather just say, do you know what? Can't clean you today. Can we do it tomorrow? And they'll go, yeah, that's fine. Actually, today wasn't very convenient. My daughter's sick, so it works out. And I think more, genuinely that's how it happens. So I think I wished I had known not to force the issue so often, and take a step back and go, okay, well, I can't do it. I can't do it.
I love that last golden nugget there. I think a lot of business owners are really hard on themselves, especially when they make, promises or they set expectations. But I think the biggest thing to remember is that at the end of the day, everybody's people, and
Yeah.
just being honest and open, like you said, just in the beginning
Yeah.
of the podcast, that's the best policy, and people appreciate that
Absolutely.
more than what you said is a half-assed job. I'd rather
Yeah.
wait a week. Nothing is gonna break if it's not cleaned. It'll be a little unclean, but like I'd rather be a good job than like do
Yeah.
half one and pay for the. It doesn't make sense.
No. And then nobody enjoys it. The employee feels under pressure to clean. They don't want to be there on their own if
Yeah.
it happened that they were on their own, and they feel under pressure. They don't do a good job. And I can think of numerous times where the client has said, do you know what, that's fine. Just send one person. Could they just clean my kitchen? I just would like that done today. And then you did. And that happens. And when you start to like I say to my managers, just know that be open and honest with the client, and worst case scenario, they cancel, but if they cancel and never call you back, maybe I don't want that client. So
unrealistic expectations. I think that's another great golden nugget, even without asking for it. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for all the time you spent with
thank
us
you, Roland.
today. I hope you get many more years of golf in front of you here with all the time savings with Housecall Pro. Thank you for joining. And for all of our pros,
thank you, Roland.
Tune in next week for another special guest on the Superpro podcast. Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
The Superpro podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.